Hey, this is Jamie with Stonemaier Games, and this is my weekly Stonemaier Games live cast in which I'll discuss some Stonemaier Games news, some topics related to Stonemaier Games. I'll answer any of the questions that you have in the post in the comments below, and I have some random, somewhat, just personal fun topics to discuss as well. What is today? Today is December 11th. So we're in the middle of the holiday shipping season right now, and I did something a little differently the other day when I sent out a back-end stock notification for Wingspan that I thought you might be interested in case you are looking to buy something from Stonemaier Games for the holidays, or this might give some other creators some ideas. We actually borrowed this from another company that used this method, which is that on the notification that I sent, like the back-end stock notification, on our shipment confirmation email, and on the order page for Wingspan itself, especially Wingspan, because that's a very high in demand product right now. We listed by order number when shipping will happen, so that people know if I order if I'm within this group of orders, I know I will get my order in time for Christmas. Or if I'm in this batch of numbers, I know it'll ship before Christmas, but it may or may not arrive by Christmas. So I thought that was a nice method for communicating to people clearly in multiple different ways when their order will ship and roughly when it will arrive. And we are within a big batch of orders. I think there's another like 400 orders that this will apply to. We're going to upgrade shipping for free. We can't guarantee at this point that it'll make it in time for Christmas, but we will be upgrading shipping for free if you order from Stonemaier Games in the hopes that it will get there in time. So that's for the next 400, 500 orders on our web store, roughly. Looks like we have some people who have joined us today. Fernando, Katie, George, Asar. Asar says, if a crystal ball could tell you the truth about yourself, your life, the future, or anything else, what would you want to know? That's a fun question. What would I want to know? That's a tough one. The future is a dangerous thing to know no certainties about. I don't know, so that's a really, really good question. Let me think about that one. They're pretty high stakes for that one, so I want to think about that one. That's a great question, though. Oh, looks like Carol. So Carol mentioned here, she said, thanks for adding the bonus to my viticulture wine glasses. It was very exciting. So we did something special last week. You might remember if you tuned in for last week's live cast and last week's e-newsletter, where I picked a few random orders that were placed last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Oh no, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and I added a surprise item to those orders. It wasn't a set item. It was something where I looked at what that person bought. Like for Carol here, I looked at Carol's order history. I tried to figure out something that she would like, and I added it as a surprise to the package. So we did that for about, I think, 10 different orders. So 10 people who ordered something last week will receive a surprise in their package. Joe says that the lighting is better this week. Thank you, Joe. I'm glad to hear that. I did add a shade over my shade over here on the right. So I have a window right here that has a shade on it, but it apparently wasn't good enough for this much better camera that I have now. And I've added another shade to it to block like the blinding white light from over here. So I'm glad to hear that it's doing better this week. William says, do I think the wrinkles in Canadian shipping for champion orders are all ironed out now? That's a great question, William. I think so, and I hope so. As far as I know, the Starlit Citadel is no longer doing any fulfillment of any kind, so we're not sending them anything else. That was kind of a big part of the problem for this particular batch. We are, at least for now, working with D6. And I know D6 has had some issues, but for the most part, other than some early hiccups, I've been pretty pleased with what they've done. But it's kind of like I'm just keeping an eye on it at this point. They have all of our inventory in Canada, so it's a good time for me to test out whether or not they can hold a high standard of quality. And if not, we will transfer all those products to someone else, so we'll try somebody else. So I think so, I hope so, but it is a work in progress right now. Today's chocolate of the day, let me throw this up there. I thought this would be fun. And Megan will be part of this decision too. It's a big decision, but I thought you might want to chime in and decide which of these we should open next. So these are both from New Zealand. New Zealand, who's kind of going through a tough time right now. They had a big volcano explode. But we were in New Zealand before the volcano exploded back in October, November, and we brought back these chocolates, and we needed to decide which one to open next. So over here we have caramelized cashew with Australian wattle seed, And over here we have the West Coast buttermilk, caramelized white chocolate, and gingerbread biscuit. That sounds like that could be good for the holidays. But I love milk chocolate and dark chocolate as well. So let me know which one you think we should open next and try next for today's chocolate of the day. Forrest said, thumbs up for the Christmas tree. He's referring to an Instagram photo that I posted yesterday of our Christmas tree in our condo here. It's a very, well, I'll let you find out. Go to Instagram at Jamie Stegmaier and you will see what our Christmas tree looks like. I'm glad you like it, Forrest. Mike says, with new hands on deck, Mike's referring to our recent hire of Joe as our first other full-time employee. He's our director of communications, and he'll begin in early January. He says, with new hands on deck, will we see more Stonemaier Games presence at conventions beyond MeepleSource? I don't think so, Mike. That's not really in the works. That isn't part of Joe's job duties, and it's not something that I'm looking to add to my responsibilities. Conventions just aren't really a big part of our marketing strategy. So probably not, but we'll see in the future. But currently it is not part of the plan. Amin says, do I have more free time now that you have a full-time employee, or do you work more on other things? Joe hasn't started yet. He is working on the transition, but he hasn't started full-time yet. But that's a good question. I do have more free time, but it's been an intentional choice. I've kind of chosen to use time in the evening to spend time with Megan. I really enjoy doing that in the evening. And so I think I've been maybe somewhat more efficient during the day to make time for that. And I've also, I haven't worked on one particular game as much as I really would like to. So with Joe coming on, I will definitely have more time for that game and for probably more game design stuff during like the 10 or so hours of the day that I will work. But I'll still designate those evening hours for quality time with Megan when our schedules align. So we do have, or I am making more time for free time, I guess is the best way that I can say it. Billy says, thanks for the Civ updates to Tapestry. Do I foresee any release like Viticulture's original Tuscany expansion and maybe a Tapestry 2.0 like Viticulture Essential Edition? No, Billy, I don't foresee that. So Viticulture, those were like big additions that we made to Viticulture. For Tapestry, we've made just a few tiny starting tweaks to the civilizations. So it's limited to basically one piece of paper. So that's not the type of thing that we do a whole new edition for. That's something where we'll include that piece of paper in new printings, and we'll continually update it as we come out with new expansions and things like that on our website. So it's a very easy change to make. A new edition of a game is usually when you have huge changes in art or graphic design or huge mechanical changes, not like little tweaks like we made to the Tapestry, to a few of the Tapestry civilizations. Asar says, for what in your life do you feel the most grateful? Ooh, I do have a lot to feel grateful for. I did a Thanksgiving post recently about all the people that I'm grateful for as a small business owner. I mean, there are a lot of individual people in my life, in my personal life, that I'm grateful for. But I want to answer this in terms of business. I'm really, really grateful for the people that support my company and who are passionate for the things that we create. That is something that I never really thought would be it's not like I never thought it, but I never imagined that many thousands of people around the world would play games that I designed or had a hand in designing. And I'm so grateful for that. That really, I mean, I guess it sounds a little cheesy saying that, but like I grew up designing games as a kid. Like that was one of my hobbies, and I did not think it would go anywhere. And so as an adult to look back on that and see how it's become such a big part of my life because of the people who support my games and who buy and play our games, that's incredible to me. I'm incredibly grateful for that. Keith says, hey Jamie, now that the first Wingspan expansion is released, is there a projected timeline for the final 6th expansion? Oh no, I mean we don't even have an exact projected timeline for the 2nd expansion because it's still definitely very much a work in progress. So my hope is to release one per year, but a lot of that depends on Elizabeth and Elizabeth's schedule and her I guess interest in the project. I don't think her interest is really going anywhere, but also it takes a lot of creative energy to design all these new birds. So it might take more time than we imagine, but my hope is to do one a year for the next, what would that be, next 5 years. One per continent. That's the idea for the Wingspan expansions. Amin says, have I read the book Building Blocks of Tabletop Game Design? I have not read that one. No, I haven't. I have two that are in my queue that I need to read. One is by Jeff Engelstein and one is by Ignacy Trzewiczek. Oh, I had a game to show you all. I wanted to see if any of you have played this game. It's on my shelf. I gotta grab it off my shelf real quick. So Megan discovered this game that she has in her closet, and we put it on my shelf. Has anyone played Zombie State? And what do you think about it? Would you recommend that I play it, that I try it? It's an older game. It's from 2010. It's almost a decade old at this point. And it's not exactly a theme that I would normally pursue, but if you recommend it, I'm willing to give it a try and talk about it on my YouTube channel. What else do we have today? Oh, I saw a great movie the other day. I wrote a blog post about it in case you saw that. It's called Knives Out. Awesome movie. I would say it was one of the best mystery movies that I've ever seen. It does some things that I've never seen in a mystery movie, and it was just really, really well done. If you like mysteries, I would highly recommend Knives Out. I don't really want to say more than that because I don't want to accidentally spoil anything, but really, I really enjoyed it. It was awesome. I see, okay, so I'm getting to the point where people are voting on which chocolate to open. I see a few votes for each so far. Amin says, what soccer position do you play? My guess is midfielder. I actually, you guessed the one position that's not true. In high school, I played for my high school team. I played forward, and at the same time on my club team, I played marking back because my main asset was speed, and so it's very good for marking backs to have speed. It's very good for forwards to have speed. As an adult, when I play pickup soccer, I float all around. So there isn't really a set position in pickup soccer. Tom says, do I ever buy inserts or dashboards or token holders? He says, we do when they make setup teardown easier, but it's tough when they're almost as expensive as the game. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I know a lot of effort and craftsmanship goes into those inserts, so I can see why they're so expensive. But no, I don't think I've ever actually bought one myself. It's something that I'm considering more and more as I have so many games, and I have so many incoming games as well. I think, in the past, I have more of a desire to upgrade my existing games than get new games. That isn't saying I don't want to get any new games, but that desire has shifted a little bit, whereas in the past, all I cared about was trying new stuff. Not necessarily owning new stuff, but trying new stuff. So that's shifting a little bit in terms of where I might spend my gaming budget. But yeah, I'm curious how you guys think about that. Like, what's your interest in acquiring and trying new games versus upgrading the games that you already have? And has that changed? Has that desire level shifted over time? Derek says, any tips for new board game developers getting people to join their Facebook group? Derek, I have some articles about like building your crowd. I would make sure the group is public so that when people post in it, when they interact with it, that it jumps onto that people who they follow, their friends, get notifications on their feeds so they can see what the people in that group are talking about. And I would focus on just creating really good, engaging content in that group so that people do interact with it, so you get that organic spreading of information about the group through Facebook. So I would say the main focus for you would be to create quality, engaging content within the group itself. I see James Hudson's watching this video right now, and James is excellent at that. When he was involved, I think he started Board Game Spotlight, and I don't know how involved he still is with that, but he was superb at doing that, just creating great engagement in that group, and he gained a ton of organic followers who saw the content, saw that engagement, and wanted to be part of it, myself included. Asar says, if I could wake up tomorrow having gained one quality or ability, what would it be? Honestly, so I'll answer this in business terms again. I think one of my big weaknesses is that I am not a perfectionist in the realm of being detail oriented specifically. It's why I have to rely a lot on proofreaders and surrounding myself with people who are more perfectionists than I am. I definitely like to put out very high quality products, but sometimes the little details escape me. And so I wish I was a little better at that, a little bit more driven to find every little tiny mistake and make it perfect up front. I know that's kind of a risky thing to say on permanent video, but that's a true thing about myself that I hope I counter in the way that I delegate and run my business, but it's certainly something that I would love to improve in myself. Speaking of James Hudson, I posted a thing on Twitter the other day. I'm curious about your comment. I have a lot of questions for you all today, so I hope you feel free to answer in the comments. But I want to do a Sunday sit-down video about other publishers that are similar to Stonemaier games, like publishers that I admire. And actually, no, not just that I admire them, because there are a lot of other publishers I admire, but publishers that specifically focus on releasing only 1 or 2 new games a year, who focus on visuals, who try to innovate in terms of how they release their games and the mechanisms of their games, but a lot of publishers do that. And also they have just great social presence and customer service. So I was looking for other companies that fit those categories. I have a list of about 15 right now. There's some great answers on Twitter, but in case I missed a company that you think belongs in that group, feel free to let me know in the comments below. William says, I really enjoyed your top games of 2019 post. Yeah, that was my Sunday sit-down video this past week. I did a video about my top 10 favorite games of 2019. Games that were either released in 2019 or released really late in 2018 and weren't widely available until 2019. That video is on YouTube now. William says, what's a game that you really want to get to the table but just haven't made happen yet? So I have a bunch of games like that, William. So these are games that I own but haven't played yet, and really they should have qualified for the 2019 list. And the one that comes to mind off the top of my head is Skulk Hollow. There are a bunch of games that could make this list, but just off the top of my head, Skulk Hollow is an asymmetric 2-player game from Pencil First Games that I'd really like to try, but I haven't yet. But as I say, Pencil First Games, I think they belong on this publisher list that I just mentioned. Pencil First Games. Toby says, do I think that modern game mechanisms could potentially be seen as a form of contemporary art? I think so. Yeah. Yeah. In terms of interactive art, yeah. Yeah. What else? Oh, my post on Monday was about preparing for April Fool's Day, because there are some companies that create actual products for April Fool's Day. They're sometimes like in the vein of gag gifts, but they can be done in a high quality manner enough that people actually want them. So I did a post about this, and I did it now because I realized that if I want to do anything for April Fool's Day, if I want to make an actual product, rather than just have a joke that maybe confuses people, I need to start making it like right now. So we had some discussions in our shareholder group about what we could make, if anything. I don't know for sure if I'll make anything, but it's something that I'm thinking about now. And if you're running a company, something that you might want to think about now too, if you want to make an actual product for April Fool's Day. And I'm curious if you have any examples of that. Have you ever seen a company share something that seems like a joke on April Fool's Day, but they actually prepared in advance and actually made the thing and had it available for people to buy on April Fool's Day? If you can think of anything like that, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tony says that he recently backed a Kickstarter for an expansion to Role Player that offered an option for a big box add-on to current and future updates. Oh, to hold current and future updates. Would you ever consider offering a big box to hold all the Wing expansions, maybe once all continents are released? And Tony, I'm glad that you phrased it that way because yes, it is certainly something I'm open to. It's not something we're working on right now. It's something I'm open to, but I'm really hesitant to do it until we have a lot more certainty about the content that we will be creating. Elizabeth and I have brainstormed what the next 5 expansions will look like, but until we actually get there, they could change quite a bit. So if I make a big box, I want to make sure it actually really does hold everything. and that it holds it in a really nicely organized fashion. Like we did it for Scythe. We have the Scythe Legendary box, but it's pretty much just a big empty box. There are some containers on the inside, but it doesn't really organize the content for you. So I wouldn't mind doing that for Wingspan. Have a box that actually organizes the content in a really nice, intuitive way for you. At least that's what I'm currently thinking. Asar says, is there something that you dreamed of doing for a long time? Why haven't you done it? I'd love to swim with dolphins. That's something that I've heard is really unique and awesome and releases endorphins and all that. Why haven't I done it? I'm rarely in areas where dolphins are swimming around. So I need to go to a place where dolphins are swimming, and I need to join them wherever they are swimming. So that one definitely will happen. I'm looking forward to trying it. Kai says, can we expect another legacy game from you? I have no plans on doing another legacy game. I'd love to explore persistent content in the future. I want to tell stories through my games, but legacy is just it's a whole beast on its own. So I think I will continue to enjoy legacy games that other people create, but I have no plans on making another legacy game myself. George says, okay, I don't understand that comment, George. Let's see if I have another topic. Oh, Board Game Atlas. I did a really fun interview with Trent over at Board Game Atlas the other day. If you look on YouTube for Board Game Atlas or just go to boardgameatlas.com, you'll see the interview on there. And I think it's really cool what Trent is building there. From my understanding, he's basically building a competitor to Board Game Geek. I love Board Game Geek. I will continue to use Board Game Geek until the end of time. But I love that someone else is actually really trying to innovate and do something different that could legitimately compete with Board Game Geek. And so I'd recommend checking it out. I am starting to interact on Board Game Atlas and spending a little bit more time there, dividing my time between that and Board Game Geek. And I think it's worth checking out. So yeah, check out boardgameatlas.com if you have the chance. Forrest says, do I buy accessories like realistic resources for any of your games? I usually don't, but I just bought the upgraded food tokens for Wingspan from Board Game Geek, and they're really nice. That's great. I'm glad you like them. I don't think I've actually seen the ones from Board Game Geek, other than photos of them. Do I buy? It's rare that I do. Yeah, I was talking about this a little bit earlier. It's rare that I upgrade games, but it's something that's been on my mind a little bit more, especially if I know I'm going to get a certain game to the table a lot. What else do I have to discuss today? Currently I'm reading a new Brandon Sanderson novel called Starsight. It's the second in a trilogy. I believe it's a trilogy that he's been working on, and it's fantastic. Brandon Sanderson is one of the authors that I will buy anything. I will pre-order and buy anything he writes immediately, almost without even reading about it. I just trust him to create amazing books and write amazing books. Yeah, I have some other stuff. Let me jump over here to questions, then I have some other stuff. Asar says, what's the greatest accomplishment of your life? It's hard for me not to say creating Stonemaier games. I mean, it's been such a huge part of my life and a lot of people's lives that I think I'll say that for now. That could change, though. Leo reminded me that he mentioned Dale of Merchants last week, and he wanted to put it in my ear again. Leo, thank you, Leo. Yeah, I did actually watch a video about it after you recommended it, and I remember having seen a video on it before. Really cool deck builder. It looks really cool. I look forward to playing it. Yeah, thank you for bringing it to my attention again. It gave me a few ideas for the game that I'm working on. Keith says, do I consider myself an analysis paralysis gamer? I would say I'm actually the opposite of analysis paralysis gamer. I try to be, and I generally am very aware of how the things that I'm doing at the table impact the other players at the table. And so if I feel like I'm taking too long, I just make a decision, because I really don't want to be the one to slow the game down. I don't want to create downtime where downtime isn't necessary for other players. So I would say, on the far opposite spectrum of analysis paralysis. Some games that I played recently, one of which ended up making my top 10 game list of 2019, were Taverns of Tiefenthal, Paladins of the West Kingdom, and Sushi Roll. One of those games made the list, one of them almost made the list, and one of them is probably like a top 30 game for me, but didn't make my list. Matthias says, have I reconsidered your position design philosophy on randomness since the Tapestry controversy? I remember the same criticism was aimed at the card draw on viticulture. What mechanism have you found about recently that got you excited to put one? Oh, and the separate question here. So Matthias brings up something that I don't consider all that controversial, which is the Tapestry cards in Tapestry, which I learned from viticulture, and I designed the Tapestry cards so that they are good throughout the game. They are intended to be good throughout the game. So they most of them have something that you can do with them early on in the game. They also have something that you can do with them late in the game. So that's the thing I learned from viticulture, and that's why it's actually been a little surprising to me that people have complained a little bit about the randomness in Tapestry. I think randomness and variability is actually a really good thing, as long as random card draws, like in Tapestry, have abilities that can be used at different times throughout the game. My design philosophy also is that cards with text should be random draws, not face-up cards that you have to like really squint to see from across the table. Cards with icons are cards that you can put face-up and a card river on the table for players to see. So that is a pretty set design philosophy for me. I don't see that changing. Matthias also says, what mechanism have I found about recently that got you excited to put in one of your games? Paladins of the West Kingdom had one that's really cool, where it's a role or like a character selection mechanism that happens at the beginning of each round of the game, where you draw 3 characters. You choose one to give you an ongoing ability that round. You choose one to put on top of your deck and one on the bottom, and it's just really streamlined. It's cool. It's a great decision point. I really like that. I'd love to use something like that in one of my games at some point. Argiri says that he was at PAX Unplugged, and Tapestry and Wingspan were huge hits. That's great. I'm glad to hear that. He says he likes Tapestry a lot, wondering how it scales for 2 players. We actually did something for Tapestry that we haven't done in the past, which is we did a double-sided board. One side is for 1 to 3 players, the other is for 4 to 5 players, or 4+ players. So it actually scales really well for 2 players. Jeremy says, what's your opinion on app-driven games like Mansions of Madness, and do I see yourself implementing that technology in a future game? I have kind of a juxtaposition here. I love that people are innovating with games that use apps. I generally want to turn off screens in general when I play games, but if there's something really cool and innovative like Mansions of Madness, especially one that helps me learn the game too, I think that's really brilliant when the app helps you learn the game. I'm all for it. As a publisher, though, I do not want to be beholden to an app developer to create an app, because that could really hold up production for a game. I think it also impacts the ability to playtest the game. I think that makes it much more difficult, much more expensive up front to get something functional so that you can actually playtest the game. So it isn't something that I think I'll be pursuing in my games. So one other bit of Stonemaier Games news here is I did something that I haven't done before, which is on Friday I hosted a playtest of 2 different games that we're working on. One which is very new, and one which is we've been working on for a while. And I was the only one that knew the rules for both games. And I'm sure there's a lesson to be learned here, but basically I sent an invite to friends, and more friends accepted the invite than I thought. And so I had enough to test both games at the same time. But I didn't have 2, I only had 1 prototype of each. And so I was basically going on 2 dates at the same time. I was trying to divide my attention between both groups, learn from both playtests, teach both at the same time. In the end, I think it went pretty well, because there was one that was very easy to teach and one that required me to sit down and play it and teach it and be involved in it. But it was definitely a learning experience to try to run 2 playtests simultaneously for 2 different games for people who had never played either of those 2 games or didn't know how to play the current version of either game. Yeah, it was a tough challenge, but it ended up going well. I think my friends were flexible enough to kind of just go with the flow, and there was a little bit of downtime when I was like teaching one game and not the other, but I had drinks and snacks, so it worked out fine. But I'm curious if any of you designers have ever tried to do that, run 2 simultaneous playtests for 2 different games, and how that went. If you have any tips for doing that, I'd love to hear about that in the comments. Asar says, if I knew that in 1 year you would die suddenly, would I change anything about the way you are now living? Why? That's an interesting question. I think I would try to complete things. So I have a few things on my bucket list, but I also have like games that are in progress now in the design and development progress. I would want to complete them and not start new things. So I would want to complete those things so they could be released either after my death or before my death, and not start new things that would just be unfinished permanently. Um, so I would definitely still work. I don't know if I change all that much dramatically otherwise, because I'm very happy the way that I live my life right now. So it's not like I'm looking forward to a day where I can live a dramatically different life. I'm pretty happy with the way things are, and so I don't think it would be all that dissimilar from the way I currently live. Chad says, when you visited New Zealand, were you at any time close to the volcano that recently erupted? Let me look. I actually haven't looked on a map to see where this island is. White Island, New Zealand map. Let's see where it was. Oh yeah, we were quite near there. Yeah, we were on an island called Rangitoto, which is uh, right outside Auckland, and it looks like White Island is fairly near. Well, actually, no. It's actually a bit of a drive from Auckland. No, we weren't. We weren't all that close. We were in that kind of bay, but we were no. Actually, we were in a different bay. Nope, we were not close to it. We were probably 2 hours away from it at the closest. New Zealand is surprisingly big. It's much bigger than it looks on a map. Carol says, "What do I think caused your desire to shift to upgrading games from buying more?" I think it's partially the shelf that I have of unplayed games, and that there are games that I love that I want to play a lot that don't hit the table quite as often as I'd like because I'm always trying new stuff. So maybe I just need to add another game night and have one game night that focuses on going deep on games and one game night that focuses on trying new stuff. That might help. That might address the thing instead of actually spending more to upgrade. Because in terms of like the quality of games, a lot of the games that I have on my shelf are very, very high quality. They don't really need upgrades. I don't play them and think, oh, this needs an upgrade. George says, when is the second printing of Tapestry coming out? He already owns 2 copies. Second printing of Tapestry should be in retail in early January. Amin says, you mentioned a while ago that you tried working in coffee shops. Do I still work there? Yeah, so the thing I've been experimenting with is 1 or 2 times a week, just getting out of the office and just going to brainstorm at a local coffee shop. Just pencil, paper brainstorming and bring back some coffee for Megan. And I've been loving that. I've really, really been enjoying that. I think it's good for my relationship. I think it gives Megan some quiet time, some Megan time here. And it gives me a chance to step away from the computer and just think about maybe a game that I'm working on that has some problems, or brainstorm new games and new ideas. It's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'll probably write a blog post on that soon too. Chad says, how would I define a Euro game? A Euro game to me is a game that gives players a large amount of agency with little luck. So the choices players make, they have control over the outcome of those choices for the most part, rather than having luck be a big part of that outcome. Whereas I think once you veer into other categories of game, luck becomes a much bigger part of the outcome of player decisions. So I had that question about other publishers that are kind of similar to Stonemaier Games, and Forrest mentioned Plan B Games and Capstone Games. I need to add Capstone there. I didn't have Plan B on there, but I do love Plan B. Adrian says, what goals does Stonemaier Games have for 2020? You know, Adrian, I'll do a deep dive of that next year. A lot of it is like continuing to do things that we're currently doing. What are some? I don't know if we have any real big new goals for 2020. Not that I can think of offhand, Adrian. I do a deep dive into that every year, and I'll see if anything comes up. But I can't think of anything really offhand. Okay, Emma mentioned the Barkham horror thing that came out of April Fool's Day. Yeah, that was one of the things that inspired my blog post. Fantasy Flight Games put a joke on April Fool's Day about Barkham Horror instead of Arkham Horror, like a dog-themed Arkham Horror. And the fan response was so big that they actually made it, which I think is awesome. But I think it would be even awesomer if they had announced it, Barkham Horror, and then said, hey, this isn't just a joke. You can actually buy this today on April Fool's Day. And that's kind of what I'm thinking ahead towards April 1st for. Tiago says, would I consider making a non-Euro game? I'm not against it. I'm not entirely against it. No, I do like player agency, though. You can see that in all my games, even like in Scythe, where I put combat in the game. There's a lot of player agency in that combat in Scythe. So I think it's possible, but I just have a hard time breaking away from agency. I love player agency. Barry says, if I could pick any intellectual property from another author to make a game for, what would it be and why? Well, the one that I've talked about pretty openly is Red Rising. I've talked about how I love the Red Rising series and would love to make a game in that world. Carol says, did I see they announced November 17th for the 4th Stormlight Archives? I did not see that, Carol, but that's awesome to hear. I'm glad that we actually have a firm date on it. So, are pre-orders already live for it, or have they just announced a date at this point? Christopher says he might have missed it, but did I ever announce the results from the poll regarding a new game within the Scythe world? Yeah, Christopher, actually the top 2 picks were a deck building game in the Scythe world and a 2-player Scythe themed game. So I'm thinking about those 2 things right now. Jeremy says, do I start with theme or mechanisms when creating a new board game? It really depends. I think like maybe half my games I start with a thematic idea, half I start with mechanisms. But usually when I start to brainstorm those ideas, right away I mix and match. So I might have a little theme idea, but right away I'm thinking, okay, well, what's a mechanism that fits that theme? And then when I come back, when I have that mechanism, I'm like, okay, but does that really fit the theme? How does the theme need to change a little bit to fit that mechanism? I go back and forth, I mix and match. So it's usually like the inkling of the idea could be either. Sometimes it's even like the art. But right away it gets all mixed together and jumbled together. Jasley says, Jasley says, do I know of the Secret Cabal Gaming podcast and do I listen to them? Absolutely, yeah. They're actually one of my favorite podcasts. Their episodes are really long, so I usually listen to the banter at the beginning and then their review of the main game. So I miss out on some things like Tony's news and but I love the Secret Cabal. I love how much they seem to really like each other. That really comes through in their podcast, and so I just like hearing them interact with each other and the way they talk about and think about games. Okay, Sean says, have I seen the holiday game price inflation? The price on Scythe on Amazon has gone from 53 to 66. Any last minute Christmas specials? 66 is still a great deal for Scythe. Scythe is a $90 game, so that's a great price for Scythe. I actually don't think it's related to the holidays, Sean. I think it's just that when demand is high and supply goes down, the price will go up. And right now, the supply of Scythe is more limited than it has been otherwise recently, and the demand is very high. So I think that's the same for any product. I don't think there's anything artificial or necessarily holiday related going on. Amin says, who's your favorite board game artist apart from those that you've worked with? I really like, there's a few. Naide, I like a lot. I like, who's the guy that did Treasure Island? Vincent Dutrait, I think is his name. And then, is it Matsuchi? Emerson Matsuchi? No, that's the designer. The guy who did Flip Ships, the art for Flip Ships. I'm blanking on his name right now, but I'll look it up so I can say it out loud. And I'm sure some of you are saying it to your screen right now. Flip Ship artist. The artist for Flip Ships is Kwanchai Maria. I think they're all very, very talented. I love to work with them. Ken says, after releasing many games within Stonemaier Games, what do I find to be the most challenging and or difficult about the game's creation process start to end? I guess this is something that has happened with Tapestry and other games. I think asymmetric balance is still a real challenge. No matter how much we playtest games, it's still hard to catch everything in terms of the balance of those games. So I think that's a really difficult thing. I love to have asymmetry in games, but I want it to be as balanced as possible. And so I think that's one of the most challenging and or difficult aspects of the game creation process. Justin has an example here about how he did a play test while they were. So he's talking about the question I asked about running separate play tests for separate games at the same time. Sean says that he has taught his nephews multiple games at the same time. Any recommendations that I can give for games to give his nephews for Christmas? He mentioned Scythe, Mansions of Madness game, Tokyo Plague Inc., and Pandemic. Teenage boys love games that involve combat, death, huge boards, and miniatures. Well, I love Kemet. I think Kemet is a wonderful game that meets my requirements for player agency, but it's still like a wonderful interactive game with big miniatures. So Kemet, I would highly recommend if you haven't played it with your nephews. Dave says, "Am I going to play test your games better in the futures?" And so, Dave, we play test games, I think, at the level of quality that I think anyone could possibly play test games, and will continue to do that in the future. George says, "How many new and good games do I buy for myself to play in 1 year?" Do I buy for myself? I probably buy around 50 new games a year. I think that sounds about right. But I also play a lot of games that friends acquire. Yeah, I would say that's about right. So the number of games that I play in 1 year, or new games that I play, probably around double that, 100 games. Adam says, "Are there any movies or books that I would love to make a game about?" And the one that I mentioned a second ago was Red Rising. That's a book series that I really love. Kai says, "If I had all the possibilities and unlimited money, what special materials would your dream game have? What is currently not possible to produce, but you really want it?" I mean, one thing that I toyed around with, but I think Cool Mini or Not has actually done it. Actually, no, they haven't quite done it. But what I would love to have are a game board that has digital elements to it without any screens at all. So it's hard to describe a little bit, Kai, but basically like cards that have chips embedded in them, kind of like in Drop Mix, where if you put them in certain parts of the board sees those cards and displays something without a screen. That's the tough part. I don't know what that means without a screen, somewhere on the board. So that basically the board can see the cards you're putting on it without the need of players having like an iPad or a phone out while they play. I don't know if that is even possible though. Looks like I'm at the end of the comments here. Sean says he loves the new camera. He can see the cat there. Yeah, so there's Biddy in the background there. He's sleeping on that chair. Are curtains awkward to reduce the side lighting? So I do. Oh, you just got up. Oh, Walter's playing with our Christmas lights out here. Thought I heard something in videos. I want to check it out. So yeah, I put up a second layer of curtain over here so that it isn't as blindingly light as it was before. Like if you go watch my Sunday sit-down video, I think it's very light. There's a lot of light coming in from this side, but this is actually much better. I think this is probably the best it's going to get, to be honest. But this is significantly better than before. I think I've covered all my topics for today. I talked about Zombie State. I haven't seen any comments of anyone saying they've actually played this or recommend this. Talked about Knives Out and Starsight. Knives Out, the movie, Starsight, the book. Talked about other publishers that are similar to Stonemaier Games. Preparing for April Fools. I recommended checking out BoardGameAtlas.com. Talked about, at the very beginning, I talked about holiday shipping for Stonemaier Games, how we have told customers by order number when they can expect their order to ship. Talked about hosting 2 playtests at the same time for different games. I mentioned that I played Taverns of Tiefenthal recently. I played Paladins of the West Kingdom recently and Sushi Roll recently, one of which ended up on my top 10 games of 2019 video. That Sunday sit-down video I posted on Sunday, this past Sunday. And I mentioned my chocolate of the day, which will be one of these. Sounds like we're kind of split right now between them, so maybe I'll let Megan be the tiebreaker. I'm happy to eat either of them. I think that's all the topics I'll cover today. Let me see if there's any other questions here. Eddie says, if I had to choose only one game to play in a month, what game would it be? So if I had to play like one game just over and over again, and only that game, depends on who I'm playing with. Let me pick two. I'll pick one two-player game, and right now I think that would be Dice Throne, because I really want to play through all the characters in Dice Throne and all the different combinations in Dice Throne. I have Season 1 and Season 2, but I haven't played Season 2 at all. Campaign, actually, I'm going to answer three ways. A campaign game, right now I have Clank Legacy going, so that one I might pick, but I also want to do the campaign for, I'm blanking on the game now. It is, shoot, I just blanked on it. Here, I'm going to take a peek real quick. Space Base. I have the campaign for Space Base. It's right around the corner there. So I want to do that in a month. I would do that gladly in a month. But if I just had to pick one game to play repeatedly over and over, I'd probably, I'd pick one of my favorite games, which is Castles of Mad King Ludwig. I never get tired of playing Castles. I would gladly play that continuously for a month. And then I might be tired of it. Mahir says, check out Beyond Humanity Colonies on Kickstarter. They have cards with chips that do amazing things. Ooh, thank you for the recommendation, Mahir. I will check that out right now. Let's pull it up and talk about it for a minute. Once Kickstarter loads. Okay, so Beyond Humanity Colonies. Here we go. Oh, it's not live on Kickstarter right now. Okay, this is going to take some detail to check out, but I appreciate the recommendation here, and I will take a detailed look at it. Ooh, it's expensive. $225. Wow. All right, this better be cool. I'll check it out after I get off the live cast. Adam says, how do I find a game's Purple Cow? Purple Cow, that's a reference to Seth Godin, isn't it? But I can't remember what it means. Can you clarify what you mean by that, Adam? George says, what advice would I give to someone who is new and wants to pursue designing board games? Play a lot of different board games, and while you're playing them, think about them from a design perspective. Think about what you like, think about what's frustrating, what's not intuitive. I think that's a great way to get the foundation. And the second thing would be to actually just do it, to stop thinking about designing a game and just sit down and design one, get it to the prototype stage as quickly as possible, just so you can go through that process, just so you can see what it feels like and get that first playtest in. So you can also know that the first playtest is going to suck. Go through all that just to get it over with, and so you know like what each step of the process feels like, and then revise that process so it feels right for you. I spend a lot of time brainstorming because that feels right to me. But yeah, I think that's two things that you can help get you started. Tony, I accidentally skipped this question. He says, you skipped my question. I wanted to hear you say bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree? With an Austrian accent. I don't really do accents, Tony, but I've read that quote now for you. Ryan says, did I miss your mention of the Champion T-shirt you're wearing? Yeah, Champions I haven't shown the full thing here, but I am wearing a special Champion T-shirt that we sold to Stonemaier Champions recently. They're being shipped right now. All Champions should have them by the end of next week, I think. Around the world. So yeah, I'm excited to be wearing it. It feels great, looks great. Yeah. Morgan mentions a Kickstarter for a thing called Board Game One. That's a digital device that replaces the board for lots of games. Interesting. So that's the thing, that I don't really want more screens. I want the cardboard without the screen, but maybe with some level of AI or connectivity. So I'm curious what this Beyond Humanity, if that does it in any way. Chad says, what do the new icons mean on my shirt? You'll have to find out, Chad. I haven't really revealed exactly what these icons mean yet. Chad says, oh, it looks like Jakob Brzezowski just joined us. Cy, the creator, 1920 plus creator. Thanks, Jakob, for dropping by. Chad says, what's the heaviest, longest game that I enjoy playing? Probably Terra Mystica. Yeah, I'd say Terra Mystica is up there. Feast for Odin, also. Christopher says, how do I like Clank Legacy? I'm loving it. It made I think the number 9 slot of my top 10 list of 2019, and that's out of like the 100 games that I played this past year, so that's very high up. The one that's caught me off guard a little bit is how long each session is. Each game is played 2.5 to 3 hours, which is a lot longer than normal Clank, but it's worth it. Like, every moment is worth it. It's so much fun. But I already love Clank too. Sean says, I was out of the country. When did the Stonemaier shirts go on sale? We sold them, a few weeks ago? And basically we made exactly what we needed for those orders. But Sean, we'll do another batch, probably of a new shirt. I don't think we'll do the exact same shirt. It'll kind of be like one new shirt a year. That's kind of the plan every year. So we'll do more next year at some point. I know they aren't still on sale. Adam says, if I ever have time, I might like The Painted Man and Shadow of the Conqueror. Awesome. Thank you for those recommendations, Adam. I will check those out. Yeah, I'll do that right now. Looks like I'm at the end of the questions here, so let me hop on over and look at what those books are. The Painted Man and Shadow of the Conqueror. Yeah, thank you so much for that recommendation. I'll check it out. Thank you all for joining me today. These were great questions, great answers from you, and I look forward to chatting with you next Wednesday. All right, take care. Bye.